Hello, this is my friend Jeremy, and we're doing a movie review, and the movie we want to review is Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. Now, this was released in 1995, and this is a sequel to the 1992 supernatural horror film Candyman, which was directed by Bernard Rose and based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker. Now, I heard that Bernard Rose originally wanted to do the sequel to Candyman, and his idea was actually a prequel. I heard it was going to, focus on Candyman when he was human, Daniel Robitaille, and the woman he falls in love with, Caroline. I don't know how that would have worked out. I don't know if, it was going to be almost like a romantic drama about them or something, or was it going to lead into, supernatural stuff?
It might have. They would have probably also explored the horrors of racial hatred. I think it would have been a good way to do it in the movie.
I've also heard that another idea was also going to be a prequel, but it was going to be set, I think, in London during the Jack the Ripper killings, and it was going to imply that what if Jack the Ripper was actually Candyman? That would have been interesting as well. There was also another idea going around of having the Candyman sequel also incorporate elements of the Clive Barker story, The Midnight Meat Train, which also would have been interesting to see those two stories get combined. Bernard Rose didn't come back for this one. This time around, the film's directed by Bill Condon, who also directed Gods and Monsters, which is an amazing movie.
Yes.
And he directed one of the Twilight movies. So, what do you think of Candyman Farewell to the Flesh?
For the most part, I think it's a decent, well-made film. It's alright. I will say it has a lot of fake-out jump scares, which I hate. I really hate those. Fake-out jump scares aren't scary, they're just annoying.
To be 100% fair, there technically is a fake-out jump scare in the first movie. Remember the scene where Helen's laying in her bed and all of a sudden Trevor jumps on the bed? That was kind of done as a fake-out jump scare, so just playing devil's advocate here. They did some of that shit in the first one, but the first one, arguably, one did it better and didn't do it a lot either.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That was really just one. This one, I think, does it 3 times, maybe more. I don't recall exactly, but they do it multiple times, and it just gets annoying.
My opinions on this movie are very mixed. On one level, there's a lot that I like about this movie. Like you said, it is a very well-made movie. You could tell that Bill Condon really was trying to make a good movie here. You could tell they were trying to continue and expand upon some of the themes of the first movie. And they were trying to definitely gear this more towards adults, even though they definitely make this a little more of a slasher film, whereas I think the first Candyman is much more of a psychological horror film. This one is much more in the slasher category, I think.
Yeah.
It's a decent sequel, but it pales in comparison to the first movie.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and another thing, to me, the first Candyman movie was almost perfect as a standalone film. I don't think it really needed sequels, and I actually think making sequels almost misses the point of the first movie, at least the ending, because the ending of the first movie basically implies Candyman's dead, Helen's gonna be the new legend, Helen is the new boogeyman or protector, depending on how you want to interpret the ending of Cabrini Green. So technically a sequel to Candyman should have been about Helen.
Exactly.
Does miss the point of the first one.
Yeah.
It also misses because I have a theory on the first Candyman movie that Candyman in the first film was not literally the ghost of Daniel Robitaille, rather it was an entity that was brought to life by people's belief in it, and even at the end, when Helen's ghost shows up at the end, my interpretation is that wasn't literally Helen's ghost, rather it was the same entity, but now that the story's changed and Helen's become the new legend, the entity's taken on the form of Helen now. Again, that's just my interpretation of the first film. This movie obviously takes the whole Daniel Robitaille story literally, because they actually go into that in this one. It's decent, but not a great movie by any means. Now, what the plot of Candyman Farewell to the Flesh is it's set several years after the events of the first movie. This time around, the film is set in New Orleans. Now, what the film follows a school teacher named Annie whose brother has recently been accused of murder, but he claims that this murder was committed by the Candyman, an evil spirit with a hook for a hand that can be summoned when you say his name 5 times in the mirror. He also claims that Candyman murdered their father. As Annie tries to prove her brother's innocence, she finds out that her students are absolutely terrified of the story of Candyman, so to prove that the legend isn't true, she says Candyman's name 5 times in the mirror in front of them, and of course nothing happens at first, but as the movie goes on, she discovers to her horror that the legend is true and she has become a target for the Candyman. And as the film goes on, she discovers that her family has a link to Daniel Robitaille, the man who Candyman was when he was human. And that's really all I want to say about the plot, even though we're probably going to get into spoilers, though.
Oh, definitely.
So in the film, you have Kelly Rowland, I think is her name, as the character of Annie. What do you think of her in this movie?
I think she's decent.
Yeah, I thought she did a good job in the movie. What do you think of Veronica Cartwright as her mother?
Oh, she's great. I think she's very good in everything she does, and I like the kind of sass she brings to the character, like at the beginning where she says, I think, dickhead over the phone, or something like that, and then she just says to her daughter, when you get to be Annie, when you get to be my age, you can say whatever the hell you want.
I like how in the beginning, Veronica Cartwright's character clearly wanted to fuck her own son-in-law. Oh, like, you noticed the way she was looking at Annie's husband, it was like, she wants to fuck him.
Yeah, you could almost, it's almost like she was thinking, like she wanted to say to Annie, he is too good for you.
Yeah, Veronica Cartwright's a fantastic actress. And
I actually had the pleasure of meeting her at Schiller Theater back in 2015, and she was great. She was very nice. She told me that when they filmed the chestburster scene in Alien, I think a lot of people were asking her this question. Is it true that you and the other cast members weren't expecting it to happen? And she said, well, we didn't know specifics. We knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know certain details about it.
Now, what did you think of Bill Nunn as the father of Matthew, the boy who goes missing in the movie, the priest?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I know that actor actually recently died, I believe.
He was also in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, I thought he was really good in this movie. What do you think of, the kid characters in the movie, like Matthew or, some of Annie's students?
Not sure, really. I didn't really think too much about them.
What did we think of Tony Todd as Candyman?
Oh, I think he does a great job in this movie, just like he did in the first one.
I will say, though, some of his dialogue is basically just a repeat of what he said in the first one. I felt like his chemistry with Kelly Rowland in this movie was not the same as Tony Todd's chemistry with Virginia Madsen in the first movie. I know the relationship between them is completely different because, spoiler alert, you find out in this movie that Annie is actually the great-great-granddaughter of Daniel Robitaille, the man who Candyman was before he was murdered.
Yeah, that's another thing. That brings up another issue I sort of had with this movie. At the end of the first Candyman, spoiler alert, you kind of see graffiti art or whatever it is of a woman's face that's supposed to be, the lover of Candyman from way back when. And you hear Tony Todd say, it was always you, Helen, which kind of implies that maybe Helen was the reincarnation of this woman.
Yeah, but Caroline, you find out her name was in this movie.
But in this movie, there's no relation between Annie and Helen at all, so that's
but Helen,
continuity error.
Not really, because who's to say if you get reincarnated that you would be reincarnated to somebody who would be of the same bloodline as you? Reincarnation, the whole idea of that is you could get reincarnated into anybody.
That's true.
So I didn't really see that as a continuity error at all.
I remember there was something you once said that I agreed with about this movie, spoiler alert, Annie's husband gets murdered by Candyman, and she calls the police, and it's like, do you really think they're going to believe you when you say that the killer had a hook for a hand and that there were bees coming out of his face?
Yeah, that was really dumb.
Yes.
Like, as much as I said this one tries to maintain sort of the same adult tone that the first one had, there's a lot of areas where it really doesn't. There's a flashback scene in the movie where you see Daniel Robitaille get murdered by this lynch mob. Is a really powerful scene. My only issue, though, is they show little flashes of that scene frequently throughout the movie before they show you the full scene, and I do think that kind of lessens the impact a little bit.
I could see that. I mean, I will give them credit. They really do show the viciousness and the brutality of that horrible scene. It's just...
Yeah.
They do not shy away from the violence of it.
Yeah, or the racism, the racism that created Candyman, it really does make you feel bad for Candyman, where you almost don't blame Candyman for being what he is in the afterlife, you know? And I like the idea of Daniel Robitaille in the afterlife trying to rebuild the family that was taken from him. Like, that is a really powerful idea. Yeah, now what did you think of them bringing the character of Purcell back briefly in the beginning?
I liked that they brought him back because as big a condescending douchebag as he is, I felt that he was an entertaining condescending douchebag. Yeah, I mean, he's an entertaining douchebag. So I was happy they brought him back. And the actor, Michael Culkin, he's great. He does a great job, just like he did in the first movie.
They shouldn't have killed him off, and he should have been the hero of the movie. He should have been fighting Candyman.
I wouldn't go that far, but I will say I was pretty disappointed that they killed him off right in the opening scene. It's like, I wish they would have at least kept him around a little longer. Like, if they had to kill him off, do it later.
Yeah, my one issue with him coming back in this is the scene where he's telling the legend of Candyman, and he mentions Helen Lyle. My one problem with it is he never mentions that he knew Helen in that scene. I felt like he kind of should have mentioned that. I don't know what you think.
I mean, yeah, that would have been nice. I mean, he was technically a colleague of hers, even though they clearly didn't get along. Could make the argument that he was just giving a presentation and he didn't want it to get personal. Like, he wanted to keep it professional, if that makes sense.
I guess so. And that is another issue I have with this movie, is they explain the story of Daniel Robitaille multiple times throughout the movie. Purcell explains it in the beginning. The character who sells the snow cones explains it later on. You see the flashback at the end. It's like, that's why I think explaining Daniel Robitaille's story multiple times throughout the movie almost lessens the impact of that flashback scene.
Well, I mean, I never thought of it that way, but that's a good point. I mean, Daniel Robitaille, we know he suffered a very gruesome demise, and I guess you could say they don't have to keep beating that into our heads the entire movie. So yeah, that's a good point.
Now in the film I did notice some religious undertones, like you had Bill Nunn's character who's a priest, and when he notices that his son Matthew is getting really obsessed with the Candyman legend, he mentions how people are turning to false gods, and I thought that was interesting, the idea of Candyman almost being like a false god. And even at the end of the movie, you literally see Candyman standing on water, like Christ walking on water, so I thought that was interesting, this idea of Candyman almost trying to be like a perverted parody of Jesus Christ, almost.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Now I want to cut to our friend Bill, who showed up in my recent review of the first Candyman movie, giving his brief review of Candyman 2.
I did see the second one, and it was really disappointing. I mean, it was really disappointing. I think it was... again, it's hard to top. I mean, I think that, Bernard Rose made this amazing film with Candyman, but it didn't seem, even in the second one, it didn't even seem it was trying to even address any of those kind of things, and especially the fact that it took place in New Orleans, which is like the #1 occult city in the United States, and it's such a rich legacy of the supernatural and superstition and folk tales and folklore, all in New Orleans, and they did hardly anything with that, so it was very disappointing. And I think even the main star of it, the woman, was a really bad actress too, from what I remember.
I actually liked her in the movie, but that was just me. So, any closing thoughts on Candyman 2?
It's a decent, well-made entry in the series, but as you said, it pales in comparison to the original, and it has some pretty stupid things about it.
Yeah, I would agree. But yeah, that was our review on Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh. Our next movie review will be on Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. Oh boy!